Hello everyone, welcome to Festivalya. This is the first Romanian Young Adult Festival. It's organized online by Prey Publishing House and by Cărțile, one of the most beautiful bookstore chain in Europe. You have, in order to trust me, Jennifer, you have to come and visit us in Bucharest. And you will be welcomed as you are just now for our meeting.
I would love that. Absolutely. It's a dream.
I'm very happy that you are here with us. We are talking today about all the bright places and Holding Up the Universe, two best-selling young adult novels written by Jennifer Niven, already published in Romanian and translated, sold in more than 40 countries, 45.
Yes. And it's so thrilling to be here. So thank you so much for inviting me to participate.
Thank you for coming.
Let's start by confessing, dear Jennifer, that for me, you are both an extremely good writer and a very courageous one. Your stories are impossible to put down. They are very touching, they are fun, they are inspirational, but most of all, they are also touching deep existential issues. In fact, you are this kind of author who strikes a chord and go in my heart. So thank you very much for what you have already doing for our readers and for myself, because first of all, I am all your reader and sure, I am also your publisher. When did you know that you wanted to become a writer?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for all those beautiful words. They just mean the world to me. And I first became a writer. Well, I knew that I wanted to be a writer when I was a little girl. My mother was also a writer and an author, and I'm an only child. And I think that if she had any hope of writing when I was little and very energetic, she had to include writing time in my childhood routine. And she would write at her desk and I would write at mine. And she taught me to never limit my imagination and always encourage me once she discovered I loved writing. And I think I knew from like age 9 or 10 that that's what I wanted to do.
Thank you. Now I will explain a little bit how I intend to handle this meeting. For the first part of the question-answer session, I am joined by Anna, and both of us will pursue the dialogue with you, Jennifer. And after that, I will invite all our participants to ask questions, to join us step by step. But first of all, before I move the microphone to Anna, in order that she asks you her first question, let me introduce her a little bit. Anna Dragomir is a voracious reader. She read all the day and late in the night. More important is the fact that she is the youngest author of our editorial group. Jennifer, could you tell us?
What happened?
I don't understand. We have some connection problem with Jennifer. We will wait a little bit in order to see. Oh yes, apparently, I think that Jennifer lost the connection, but she will
Rejoin
very soon. Dragii mei, sunteți deja în direct, o așteptăm pe Jennifer. Bănuiesc că deja ați citit cele două romane și să știți că probabil la începutul anului viitor Vom publica următorul roman, Breathless, pe care Ana, aici de față, deja l-a citit. Este primul cititor. De fapt, este și primul cititor pentru că face parte din echipa editorială. Este absolut extraordinară cartea. La fel cum sunt și...
Jennifer is rejoining.
Ana, tu ai una, preferi unul dintre romanele lui Jennifer?
Adică îmi plac amândouă, doar că cel mai mult mi-a plăcut Toate acele locuri minunate. Primul ei roman, Young Adult. Mi-a plăcut extrem de mult, m-a făcut să râd, m-a făcut să plâng. Nu l-am putut lăsa din mână, este minunat.
Este prima carte pe care ai citit-o sau a doua?
Este prima și apoi am citit Holding Up the Universe.
Ce mi se pare fantastic la Jennifer este că citești cartea cu creionul în mână. Nu te poți abține să nu subliniezi, să spui semne, să aplici post-it-uri pe totul. Cred că în momentul acesta, I think that just at this moment, Jennifer tried to join us.
She rejoined.
I think yeah, Jennifer.
Welcome back.
Hi.
Are you hearing us?
Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Good. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened.
It's okay. It happens. Technology these days. It's complicated.
It's true.
So I was. It's everything okay? I will continue to introduce Anna, which will ask you some question. Anna is our youngest author in our editorial group. She have already published a best-selling illustrated book. In the autumn, the second one will be released. The third book that she have already written, and only few of us inside the publishing house have already read, is absolutely a gem. So because Anna is one of your biggest fan, Anna, here you is.
Thank you so much for being such an inspiration. You are amazing and I love your books. So I have a question for you. How do you feel when you write?
Oh my goodness. I love this question. First of all, thank you so much for reading all the books. That's amazing. And I could not do what I do without readers. And how I feel when I write, it depends on how it's going, I guess. If it's going well, it's the best feeling in the world. And it feels magical and mystical and amazing and exciting. If it does not go well and I'm having writer's block, then it's frustrating. It's, as Hemingway once described it, it's a lot like wrestling alligators. So you feel frustrated, and I've learned things now to do when I have writer's block, but you know, I would say I have more good days than bad days with writing. And every day that I get to write, whether it's a writer's block day or everything is just flowing the way I want it to, it's a good day because I'm getting to do it, which I always, always remember.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer, you have already published 2 nonfiction books, 1 memoir, and 4 historical novels. In 2015, you published your first young adult novel, All the Bright Places, and 1 year after, only 1 year after, Holding Up the Universe. Breathless, your third novel, will be released in September in USA, and next year in Romania also. What made you shift from nonfiction and adult writing to young fiction?
It's interesting because I really followed the story. So I just, I always say it just happens that my first 2 books were nonfiction for adults. And then the next story I kind of followed was a book that I felt needed to be told as adult historical fiction. And I think with the young adult, first of all, I'd always wanted to write young adult. I mean, I clearly have not shied away from writing different genres. But the story I really wanted to tell was one that was so personal to me. And I think I knew at the time I wanted to write it as young adult, but I wasn't ready to do it because it was about a boy I loved and lost to suicide. And it didn't happen until the death of my first literary agent, who died very unexpectedly after I was writing the last adult fiction that I had written. So the last book before All the Bright Places. And I was thinking about the last time I saw him in person, and he said, you know, whatever you write next, I want you to write it because you can't imagine writing anything else, even if it scares you. And I kept thinking about those words, and I wanted to honor him and also honor this idea that I'd been carrying around for quite some time. And I wanted to write about this boy I loved and lost. And I thought I wanted to write it from a young adult perspective for young adults, because suicide and mental health are such important issues that they struggle with. And not a lot of people, unfortunately, talk about it. There's such a stigma. And I wanted to create a discussion while also honoring this boy.
Anna, it's your turn.
So in 2020, All the Bright Places was made into a movie. That was really exciting. So how was the transition from book to movie?
Oh my goodness. It was so interesting because I wrote the script for All the Bright Places for the movie adaptation. And I had actually gone to film school to get my degree in screenwriting. So it's something I was familiar with, but I hadn't used it in quite some time. And, you know, it's funny when you're adapting, it's different when you're writing like an original screenplay, but when you're adapting your own work, you believe that every scene should be in there. So I just thought, I mean, why can't we have a 15-hour movie? That way we could include all the scenes and all the things that I loved writing about in the book. But no one agreed with me. So unfortunately, or fortunately, we did an hour and 45-minute movie instead. And it was really, I think the thing that I had to learn as I was adapting it was it needs to capture the heart and soul of the book, but not every scene can be in there. So it's almost a different animal altogether. Like the film is a complement to the book, but it's not necessarily a direct translation of it, except it was really important to me and to all the people involved to capture the same feeling that you had when reading the book while watching the movie.
Well, I have to say that the movie was really good. I really enjoyed it. And thank you. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, thank you.
I want to come back a little bit to the topics of your books, because they are serious and extremely profound. In fact, you told in an interview talking about All the Bright Places that this book is about a girl who learns to live from a boy who intends to die. It's beautifully expressed. So, as you have already tell us, it's a book about suicide, and I'm sure that all participants already know, because they have already read both of your books. Holding Up Universe, it's a love story, but it's also a book about bullying. It's a book about a boy who suffers of cognitive disorder, and a girl who was called the Fattest Girl from USA. From my point of view, it's very difficult to talk about bullying, and it's still more difficult, even risky, to talk about suicide outside a therapeutic cabinet. Weren't you concerned about writing on such prohibited, even taboo topics?
Absolutely. And I think that one thing that was challenging while writing was, you know, the voice that you have in the back of your head that is saying, but, you know, what if, you know, this is controversial, and what if I don't do it justice? And this is a great responsibility, especially I think writing these topics for young people. It is so imperative that you write with great honesty and responsibility. And so I was a little frozen at first about that, but I think ultimately I had to, as I was writing the first draft, put those fears aside and just write out of my heart. And certainly with all the bright places, out of the experience of knowing and loving this boy who suffered from bipolar disorder and the things that Finch struggled with. And then after the first draft was written on both books, I went back and I really looked at it, had people look at it, experts in the fields of both books, mental health experts, and people who had struggled firsthand with the topics, the bullying or the eating disorder, the prosopagnosia, which is what Jack has in Holding Up the Universe, which means he cannot recognize faces, and certainly bipolar disorder, suicidal ideation, and you know, experiences with those struggles. So I after I wrote it, I had people read it and make sure that it was as authentic as possible. I also did a lot of research before I wrote, because I think especially with young people, it's just so crucial that we stop this stigma, but we also do it in a way that, you know, makes young people know it's okay to talk about, it's actually necessary to talk about these issues. It's necessary for adults to be able to talk to their teens about these issues. And all of that has to be written about in the most, I think all you can do is write honestly and responsibly, especially when dealing with those hard issues.
Anna?
So in all the bright places, Violet makes a magazine, Germ magazine, and then you made it. Where did the idea come from?
I think that it was interesting. Like, while I knew Violet would be a writer because she was loosely based on me, and I just was thinking of what she could be doing with the writing. And I've always thought it would be wonderful to do kind of an online like literary journal where you have young readers. Kind of like when I was in high school, I was editor of the literary journal at our high school, and I did the same in college. And I wanted to do something kind of like that, but something that Violet created all on her own as an outlet for her and for others who were, you know, dealing with issues or who just needed to write down their feelings about whatever it was. And so Germ came about in that way. And I started talking to some young readers who were writers, and I said, would you be interested in working on this with me? And they said yes. And so our literary editor and actually editor of Germ, and she really does everything now. I don't do that much with it anymore, but she still runs it and does such an amazing job. And it's just been really lovely because we've been getting, and more so, we have submissions, writing submissions from around the world. And it's so exciting to publish new writers and to have some of them go on to like have their books published. And they say the first publication they were ever published in was Germ. And that makes me incredibly proud.
Thank you.
Jennifer, we have a lot of questions for you, but we have also 4 hands raised. So Melania Ion wants to ask you something. Melania?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm so happy to be here and be able to ask a question.
I'm so happy you're here. It's lovely to meet you too.
What is a bright place you visited and how did it make you feel? I mean, is there a place that you visited and make you feel like you're alive?
Oh, I love that question. I would say all of the places that I've been lucky enough to travel when I'm talking about the books and touring with the books, they have been the brightest places of all. And it's just mainly because I get to meet readers and I get to hug them and I get to hear their stories in person and thank them face to face for all they mean to me. I say frequently on my social media that my readers are my brightest places, and that's absolutely true because they have helped me in more ways than they know, and I wouldn't be able to do what I do without them. And so I would say anywhere that one of my readers says that I get to meet my readers, wherever that is, those are my brightest places of all.
That's so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
It will be very hard for you to manage all the questions because we have in line Patricia, Lizzie, Robert, Ioana Albu, Mara, and a lot of others. So it's Patricia Petraiu.
Hello.
Hi.
I really, really love you and your books.
Thank you so much. Thank you for reading.
Well, I have a question about all the bright places. Violet and Theodore had a fight, and after that, he killed himself. I'd like to know if the reason was this argument or was something planned.
That's a great question. And the reason was not the argument. I think one of the many things that I love about Finch is that even as he was unraveling, he was always so concerned about Violet. And he always focused on Violet. And I think when he sends her away in that moment, in that argument, he's protecting her. Once again, he's thinking about Violet. And so the argument is not the thing that made him kill himself. That was really just him trying to protect her from himself. And that's just as a side note, one reason we chose Justice Smith to play Finch in the movie is because he was the only actor, and all the actors were wonderful, but he was the only actor who got that. He was the only actor in his audition who didn't make it about him. He made it about Violet, and he just seemed to understand that. And so it's, I think back to that argument with Finch and Violet, and as if I were Violet, and I think, is there anything she could have done? Is there anything? But I mean, really, unless Finch had talked to her about all that he was going through, there was nothing she could have done in that moment differently. So that's a really good question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lizzie.
Hi, it's so nice to meet you.
Hi, it's lovely to meet you too.
My question is, how do you regain inspiration when you have writer's block?
Oh, I love this question. This is through a lot of trial and error. There are a couple of things I do. So one is if I can afford to walk away from my desk for a while, I'll do that to try to clear my head and just like get out in nature or just go outside, do something completely different. And sometimes if I do that, the ideas will kind of like, if I'm not actively thinking about them, they'll come to me or something will come to me. Another thing I do is I create playlists for all my books and from the main characters. So Finch and Violet each had playlists. Jack and Libby each had a playlist. And if I get stuck at some point, I can go like hiking or something and I can listen to the playlist. So I kind of keep them in my mind. But again, I kind of clear my, head of it. But the music can sometimes inspire a scene. If I'm on deadline and I just have to blast my way through it, I will put on that playlist and I will listen to it as I'm writing and just try to write through it. And even if I write garbage, I know that, at least maybe I can get through it by writing garbage and I can go back, remove the garbage or edit the garbage, but at least I can kind of blast my way through it. It's kind of like, I always think of like blasting through a mountainside or something. And the last thing is like, if I continue to have writer's block about some particular plot point or whatever it is, I listen to it, because if you repeatedly have it or you can't get through it by like all those other tricks that I've learned, sometimes the characters are telling you something. Sometimes they're telling you they don't want to do whatever you're trying to make them do. So maybe you need to change how you're, what you're doing with them or this particular plot point. So I'll try to listen to that as well.
That was so interesting. It was a pleasure to meet you.
That's lovely to meet you too. And thank you so much for your question.
Bye.
Bye.
Robert?
Hi. As I read the book, All the Bright Places, I felt like I wasn't alone. Thank you. I have two questions for you. How long does it take you to write a book? And the second one, do you have any advice for aspiring writers?
Absolutely. And thank you so much. It depends on the book that I'm writing. All the Bright Places actually took 6 weeks to write it, because I think I was carrying it around inside of me for so long. It just kind of spilled out onto the page. Holding Up the Universe took much longer because I was touring for All the Bright Places. So I would kind of have to write between tour stops, and that book changed a lot. From my original idea for it, it went into several different versions of what you ended up reading. The nonfiction books took about 2 years each because of all the research. So it all changes. And every time I think I've got down like how to write a book and I just know how to do it, the next book comes along and it wants to be written differently and it takes a different amount of time. And it feels like the first time I've ever written anything. In terms of advice for young writers, my mother, as I said, was also a writer and an author, and she gave me like so much of what I learned about writing came from her. And one of the things she always taught me was never to limit yourself or your imagination. Never tell yourself no, because there are enough people in this world who will do that for you. So do not be one of them. Believe in your work and yourself and your abilities. If you get to a point where you're frustrated with the writing and you wonder why you're even doing it, try to remind yourself that it's play. So much of it is play. And also try to remind yourself why it is you wanted to write it in the first place. Go back to that like original moment when you sat down and were burning to write this. And just write, show up to write. It sounds really simple and trite, but it's just so true. Nothing will get written unless you do it. And you are the only you there is. So you're the only person who can tell your story the way that you're going to tell it.
Ioana, now.
Hello, I'm so excited to have met you. It is a great honor. I love your books. You're simply amazing. My question is a bit generic, but I wanted to ask you right now, if you look behind to your whole journey from the beginning to where you are now, is there something you would change? Was it terrifying? Or would you change the way you did specific things in your career as a writer?
That's a great, great question. And it's lovely to meet you too, by the way. There are several things here and there. I think, I might have written this way, or maybe I would have chosen to do this, take up this opportunity that I turned down, or maybe I would have done this. But I think that ultimately I would not have changed anything, because it's kind of like in life. There are certainly things that I could have done differently in my life, just as in my writing, but I wouldn't be me and I wouldn't be who I am today in this moment. And I feel the same way about the writing. I just, I can look back at other books and I can see my growth as a writer. And today I might write certain things differently because I have grown and evolved. But at the same time, I wouldn't change those, because that's who I was then. And I think that that's, it's wonderful to look back and see that. And even missed opportunities or things that I think, I wish I hadn't written this or that. thinking mostly about my high school memoir. And I'm like, why did I put that story in there? I would leave everything the way it is, because I wouldn't have had the exact journey that I've had. And the journey's really been incredible.
That's true. It really is. You're really an inspiration. So thank you so much for answering my question.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much.
Mara?
Hi, hello. First of all, I want to say I'm extremely excited to meet you, and you are an amazing inspiration. All the Bright Places is my favorite book of all time, honestly. It's the only book that's ever made me cry so far, at least.
Oh my, thank you so much. That means so much to me, and I'm sorry for the tears, but thank you.
And so I wanted to ask you, regarding All the Bright Places. Was it hard for you to put in a story something, such a personal experience, or did it just feel right to share that with the readers?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. It was very hard for me to write about it. It's interesting because when I was at the American Film Institute studying screenwriting, all of my screenwriting fellow students were writing these really personal screenplays and pouring themselves onto the page. And I wrote a story about a small Midwestern town that thinks Disney is coming to build a theme park there. And it was really cute and happy. But I remember one of them saying, "We worry that you aren't able to put yourself and your emotions on the page in a way that you would need to make readers feel." And I took that to heart, and it really hurt my feelings at the time, but I could see that they had a point. And so when I wrote All the Bright Places, I think that was me just pouring it all out there. I didn't tell anyone other than my mother that that's what I was working on, because if it didn't turn out, or I didn't feel like I could be that vulnerable on the page, I didn't want anyone to know that I tried it. But it just came out, and I was surprised, but also proud of myself for putting it out there, because it was really difficult, and it felt like, I'm a very private person, and I felt very exposed writing it. But I remember the first event I did at a school, and this was before the book came out. They had like pre-copies, early copies of the book that they'd read. And when the first question that one of the students asked me was if I would mind talking about the real Finch and how he died. And I was like, wow, that is so personal. And it's so feels like so uncomfortable, but I realized how important it was to talk about that, because they needed me to talk about it, and they needed to talk about those things. So ever since then, I haven't looked back, and I've just been putting it all out there, and it's just really been amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have now Ioana Postolache.
Hello.
Hi.
Really nice to meet you. I have a question about holding up the universe.
Yes, it's lovely to meet you.
When do you feel like you are holding up the universe, and who helps you hold it?
Oh, I love that question. And no one has ever asked me that, by the way. That's a wonderful question. I feel like I'm holding up the universe almost all the time. I feel like, if I start getting stressed about all the work there is to do, and, I'm worried about friends or family. We have 2 kids, and if they're in pain or struggling or, anything like that, and that all of those things kind of combined, I feel like I'm holding up the universe. But my husband definitely helps me hold up the universe. He's everything, and he's my person. And my mother was my everything, my sun and my heart. And she died unexpectedly 6 years ago. And I met my husband 2 years ago, and I never thought that I would meet or have that connection with someone like I did with my mother, that kind of soul connection, but I had that with him. And so we help hold up each other's universes. And I would say that my readers help hold up my universe as well, because you are just everything to me, and you remind me why I'm doing what I'm doing on the days when I feel like I can't do it. And you encourage me and support me, and all of your love is just the most beautiful thing. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Steph? Steph? Steph is not here. So
oh yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
Hi.
Sorry. Hi. I just wanted to ask you, how long did it take you to write the book, All the Bright Places? And did you feel like giving up on it?
It's a great question. It's lovely to meet you. It took about 6 weeks for the first draft. But then, after that, which is really fast, but after that, I gave it to my wonderful literary agent, and she went over it. And so there was at least one round of edits, I think 2, before we sold it to Random House in the States. And then there were more edits to come. So, the writing process ended up being, it was 6 weeks for that first draft, but then it ended up being much longer after that for edits and things. And there were definitely times when I felt like giving up and not doing it, only because it felt so personal. And it was interesting because I remember saying to my agent, I don't even know if it has like a plot or that anyone would want to read it. And I don't know, because it just feels like it came out of me, but I don't know that anyone's going to want to read this book or be interested. I don't know that it's interesting, and all those kinds of doubts I think that writers have. And so, but luckily I just kept working on it. And I didn't know at the time that it would change my life in the way it has. And again, I can't tell you enough how much I love readers, because you all are just the brightest places of all.
Thank you so much. And I must confess that that was the only book that made me cry. And after I read it, I just held it in my arms for a couple of minutes and I started crying. It was literally amazing.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. That means everything.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Daria?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Hello, you're one of my favorite authors. It's an honor to speak with you.
Thank you. Likewise.
If you could talk to your younger self, and if you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
Wow, that's great. I would say, don't be afraid to express yourself and write about your feelings. Don't edit yourself as you go. Just don't ever write with someone over your shoulder. Just write out of your full heart, and don't imitate the writers you love the most. I remember just, I would get in a phase and I would read this person or that person, and then you could tell whoever I was reading, because I was writing poor imitations of them. Although I'm sure that, helped in the journey that I was talking about earlier. But I would say just, concentrate on what you have to say, and just write out of your heart, much sooner than you started to.
Thank you so much for answering the question.
Thank you so much for the question.
Melissa, it's now.
Hi. First of all, I want to say that I love your writing so much.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry if my voice is wavering or something.
No, you're good.
So the ending in All the Bright Places is so beautiful, and thank you for it not being a happily ever after ending like many books addressing mental health are. How did you feel making the decision, this like big taboo decision of not having a happily ever after book? Were you confident or were you afraid of people's reactions?
That is a really good question. I there are moments where I thought I would really love to write a happily ever after book, just because I wanted to give Finch and Violet a happy ending. But I wrote the ending that I knew in real life with the boy who inspired Finch. And that was important to me to do for a couple of reasons. And one was because it's what I knew. And, as much as the book is about Finch, it's really about Violet's journey. And that journey was very similar to my journey, knowing this boy. And so that was important to me. And then also because there are so many happy endings with things like mental illness, when you're talking about mental illness in books. And I wanted to show the reality and just show that unfortunately, not all books and stories end that way. And in order to make them end in a happy way, we need to be there for each other. We need to listen to each other. And, Finch Finch could have spoken up and asked for help. And it's so important to be able to do that if the people around you don't know what you're going through. And so I wanted to convey all of that. And, but I cried when I wrote the book. Someone asked me how I wrote it without crying. And I was like, oh, I cried a lot while I was writing it. And I did have one publisher before we sold it who wanted to change the ending and make it a happy ending. And as soon as we got off the phone with them, my literary agent and I were like, well, no, that's not an option. So yeah, we're honoring what I wrote.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alexia.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm really glad I can talk to you. I have two questions. Why didn't Finch take Violet as a reason to leave? I mean, Violet found happiness in him.
Could you repeat it?
Why didn't Finch take Violet as a reason to leave?
I think that, I wish that it was always as easy as staying for someone. And I think in Finch's case, someone was asking me recently, a reader was asking me, like, why wasn't Violet enough for Finch not to leave? And I think it wasn't about Violet, it was about Finch. And I think that, he loved her so much, but unfortunately, what he was struggling with was so much bigger than Violet. And it was something that, he didn't really let her in. She didn't really see what was happening with him until much too late. And as Embryo says in the book, sometimes people they really control what other people want, what they want other people to see. And so I think that, that's one of the many reasons it's so important to speak up and speak out and reach out to others, and to also listen and be there for others as much as you can to let them know it's okay. Because, Finch it wasn't, as I said, it wasn't about Violet as much as it was about Finch and his not being able to speak up and ask for the help that he deserved so much, if that makes sense.
It makes. And my second question is, was Finch ever worried that Violet might try to kill herself again?
That's a great question too. I think that Finch I think what he gave Violet, it's not that he saved her, but I think that he helped give her the tools she needed to be stronger, to join the world again. I always think when Finch and Violet met, she was really asleep, to quote something that Finch says about himself, and he was awake. but then at some point they kind of switch, and she starts to be awake and he starts to be asleep. And I think that he really gave her what she needed to stay awake, and he helped wake her back up. And so I don't think it was a conscious thing that he worried about. I think that what he tried to do was do for her what he could until he couldn't focus on Violet anymore and have to focus on himself.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Those are great questions.
Mara?
Oh yeah, hi again.
Hi.
So I wanted to ask you, because you kept telling us about your mother and how much she inspired you. I wanted to ask you if in any way any of your characters were inspired or had something drawn from your mother, even subconsciously, the fact that you didn't do it on purpose, but it just happened.
I love that. She definitely inspired some of Violet's mom. The parent she inspired the most is actually in Breathless. She inspires Claude's mom, and the relationship they have is very similar to the one I had with my mother. It's not, it's super close, but my mom and I were like really close. But I think that one in Breathless is the most she directly inspired. There are elements of her in Violet's mom and elements of my dad and Violet's dad. But I really, when I was writing Holding Up the Universe, I gave my mom to Libby. So I gave her all the grief that I felt over losing my mom very suddenly and unexpectedly. So all of those things that I wrote about Libby's, memories or flashbacks to her mother, that was my mom, and that was what I felt. And the way her mom died is how my mom died. And so that really is where I put it, purposely. And then again in Breathless.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll try now to take some questions from the chat. We have really a lot of questions. If it's possible, please use the raise hand button. It would be easier. So from chat, Christina Maria. I will try to find the question. Christina Maria, hi. How would you encourage a teen who wants to write a book? I really loved All the Bright Places. It reminded me a lot of a beautiful car rides and so on. I'm so sorry that I'm writing the question. I am currently at the dentist waiting, but I could not miss this interview. So here I am using the chat instead of the microphone. She's very sweet. So, yeah, what could you tell to a teenager who wants to write a book? We already have had this question.
But I'm happy to answer again. And first of all, I hope the dentist goes well. So I hope you're having a good appointment and nothing's wrong. Thank you so much for sending the question while you're at the dentist. I would just tell you to believe in yourself always. Don't doubt yourself. As my mother used to say, don't tell yourself no. And just don't limit your imagination. And always believe in your writing and in yourself, and believe in the reason that you decided to write your idea in the first place. And also just, I hear so many readers say, oh, I want to write this, but it's been done. And I don't want to just do another kind of story like this or that. But I really feel like, first of all, you're the only you there is in the entire world. And so you're the only you who can write the story the way you would write it. And whatever is in your heart and soul to write, just write it. And realize too that so much of writing is editing. Don't worry about perfection because there is no such thing. And even if you're a wonderful writer, you're going to have to go back and edit. And so you have to learn to love editing because it's so much of the process of writing.
Always on the chat, I have a very, very interesting question. Here is a question from my favorite book about mental health, The Bright Places. What would the story have looked like if Finch had lived?
Very good question. I think if he had lived, he and Violet would have gone to New York together and to college, and I think they would have stayed together, and I think he would have ended up helping all sorts of people who struggle in the way that he struggled, and made an impact on them by encouraging them to talk about what they're going through.
That's so lovely. It was my question. Thank you so much.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
Diana is here. Ionela Pleșan asked us the following question. If we were back in 2010 and 2015, do you think that all the bright places would have been so well received and seen?
If we were, what's the first part of the question?
2010, 2015.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I hope so.
Yes.
I hope it would be. I don't know, but I think one thing that I'm really excited about, and I don't know that this pertains exactly to the question, but I'm so happy that more YA books now are addressing issues and addressing mental health issues, that there's, I think, more discussion of mental health issues and perhaps a little less stigma. So I hope that it would have been, but I'm really just happy now to see the response and to see that, hear the discussions I think that are being had now that probably weren't being had as often when the book first came out, if that addresses the question.
So back to the screen, Adriana is here with us. Adriana? Adriana, are you here?
Hi.
Hi. I want to ask you something a little bit different. If you could talk with author alive or dead, what would you choose?
Could you repeat? Sorry, we're having a thunderstorm here, so it's a bit loud. Sorry about that. If you don't mind repeating, that'd be wonderful.
What?
If you don't mind repeating the question, that would be great.
If you can speak with author alive or dead, what author would you choose?
I would choose, well, I'd probably choose my mom, but I definitely would choose my mom. But next, like aside from my mother, there is an author named Shirley Jackson, whom I love. She's probably my favorite author after my mom. She wrote We Have Always Lived in the Castle and The Haunting of Hill House, the short story The Lottery. I think she would be fascinating. I love her work. It's very darkly funny, and I think she had a really brilliant mind. I don't think she had the happiest life, but I would just love to talk to her about her writing process and her inspiration for where her stories came from. I love that question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sia has a question. Sia, can you ask now?
Hi.
Hi.
So I want to tell you that I'm so grateful to be here. I admire so much. I can't believe. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much.
I wanted to ask you, do you see writing as a kind of a spiritual practice?
I love that. I do, actually. It's my mom and I used to talk about this and about, you know, first of all, it's just a wonderful outlet for your emotions and your feelings and your thoughts. And I feel like so much of the time I figure out what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking by writing. I feel like sometimes I can't access that as, you know, immediately as I want to. So the writing really helps me figure out how I feel about something. But I do feel like it's this kind of spiritual process, and also a bit mystical. My mom used to say, you know, it's hard to know where, when the writing is really good and inspiration hits you, it's hard to know sometimes where it comes from, but you don't question it. You just honor it and you write it, and you hope that others will read it. And it always feels, when it's good, to me, it feels very personal. And so I think that's a bit spiritual, actually.
Thank you. You're amazing.
Thank you so much. You are too.
Thank you.
Yes, Miruna, you can ask a question. Just now. Miruna?
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
Maybe putting everything on a paper has changed your perspective about people who have mental disorders. I mean, did it help you to understand better how their mind works?
Definitely. Yeah, I think that, you know, writing All the Bright Places in particular was such an amazing, eye-opening experience for me. I mean, I not only, I think, understood better the boy who inspired Finch, but I understood, you know, by talking to other people who had experienced similar feelings and struggles, it really helped me understand, you know, the loved ones I talked to more. And it also, I think, I shouldn't have been surprised by how many people came forward after the book was written and talked to me about their journeys and their struggles. But so many readers, like I still get many messages a day from readers who say the book helped them or saved them in some way. And I think I was actually really surprised by how many people are struggling in silence, because the thing I hear the most is, thank you for letting me know I'm not alone. And that took me by surprise, because I think we all think we struggle alone in whatever way we struggle. But it was really both astounding to see how many people were struggling, but also affirming to see that I'm not alone. You know, this person's not alone, this person's not alone, and we're all in this together in a way. So if that answers your question.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Are you tired, Jennifer?
I love this. No.
There are few readers in waiting. And just now it's Andrei. No, Andy Abrudan. Andy. Andy, where are you?
I'm here. Just
Hi.
I can't open my camera. I don't know why.
It's good to hear your voice.
I just want to say that I admire your writing style. Is just amazing. And I read both All the Bright Places and Holding Up the Universe, and I love them both. And I actually loved how they were both in different extremes. Like All the Bright Places was sad, while Holding Up the Universe was really inspiring and happy. And I was curious about the direction you took with Breathless, if you can tell us.
In terms of which one it's closer to, in terms of sad or happy?
Yeah, in terms of sad and happy, and maybe with which one is close to.
I think it's probably closer to All the Bright Places, but it is kind of a combination. I mean, pretty much of the tone. There's definitely a lot of humor in it, but it's probably a little bit sadder than Holding Up the Universe, I would say. So more in the direction of All the Bright Places. Hopefully not as devastating, though. but still is personal. I will say that it's a very personal story.
Thank you so much. Are you working on another project right now?
I am. I'm actually adapting Holding Up the Universe for film. I'm writing the script for the movie right now. And I am working on, just finished another YA novel with another author. So we co-wrote a book together. I can't talk about it yet, but I'm really excited. And I am working on another solo YA book right now as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can you tell us which is the other co-author that you are writing with? One. Or you cannot.
I wish I could tell you. I can tell you privately.
Okay. That means that at the moment you prefer to talk with Catalina.
Yes.
Catalina?
Hi, it's such a pleasure to meet you.
It's lovely to meet you.
First of all, I want to say that I really loved All the Bright Places. It made me laugh, it made me cry, it made me laugh with tears in my eyes. So my question is, when Theodore passed away, even though it was very painful for Violet, I think that she was in a really good place. So where is she now?
I love that. She is writing books and she's found love again. And she remembers the boy she loved and lost, and thinks about him every day. But she remembers him with gratitude and love because he helped her be awake again. And maybe she even wrote a book about him that helped other people, so that in a way, even though he lost his life, he helped save others.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julia?
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering that All the Bright Places has so many memorable moments and heart-wrenching moments. And which moment was the hardest to write?
Oh my goodness. That's great. Thank you. First of all, I think the hardest one to write was the most autobiographical for me. And that was when Violet is asked by his mother to go look for him. And she goes to the blue hole kind of knowing what she's going to find, but hoping that that's not what she's going to find. And then she finds him. So that for me was the hardest, because that's what happened in real life. I found the boy who inspired Finch. I was asked by his mom to go find him. And so I think that one, I mean, that I cried and cried, and I had to walk away from it for a little bit, for a couple of days, and kind of catch my breath and then go back to it. So yeah, that was definitely the hardest. It's the hardest moment in the movie too. The first day I was on set for the film was that day, in that scene when Violet is waiting for the police to come. And I just was, for the like 24 hours afterward, I was just a mess, because it was just too real.
Thank you for answering my question.
Thank you for asking.
Melania?
Hi again.
Hi. Hi.
Oh, I tried to open the camera and I can't. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Was there any moments or people who had tell you that you couldn't become successful as a writer? I mean, there are so many people telling me that there's just 1 in a million chance to make it when it comes to artistic careers.
Yes.
So
and
do you have any advice?
Definitely. That goes back to what I was talking about with my mom when she said, you know, enough people in this world will tell you no, so don't be one of them. You know, I remember talking to my high school guidance counselor about what I wanted to do for a living, what my plans were after high school. And I said, oh, well, I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to be a successful writer. And she was like, that's, you know, that's a good dream, but I think you should just think of backup plans. Like maybe you should take some secretarial classes. And I was just like, why would you tell someone right away that they couldn't do something? And that just kind of fueled the fire for me anyway, because the surest way to get me to do something is tell me I can't do it, because then I'm like, oh, just watch me. And I had, you know, after I talked about my agent who died suddenly, like years ago, my first literary agent. And after he died, I was trying to find a new agent, and I had an agent say, well, I wouldn't go near her because she's cross genres. She's written nonfiction for adults and fiction for adults. Now she wants to write young adult. No, that's career suicide. I wouldn't touch that, you know, at all. And that devastated me because it was a really vulnerable time in my life. And I felt like, oh my gosh, what have I done with my career? Now no one is going to represent me. And that's before I found my current agent, who's absolutely amazing. But that was one person's opinion. And my mom said, you know, that's one agent and he doesn't represent all agents. And you don't need to make anyone let you feel bad about choices you have made. So don't listen to that. And so that's what I say to you, is just, if you believe in yourself and your work, that is all you need. And then one day there'll be someone to take a chance on you, like people took a chance on me. And incidentally, I also, on my website, jenniferniven.com, have resources for writers about getting published and the whole publishing process, if there are any questions there that can be answered.
Thank you. And could you name a song that gives you the same vibe or feeling as All the Bright Places? If not, it's okay.
Oh my goodness. There's a song, oh my gosh, there's so many songs by Sleeping at Last actually that I love, but there's a song Pluto that I listened to over and over again while I was working on the script by Sleeping at Last, and I just loved it so much. But there's so many. And people know my love for Harry Styles, and like, oh yeah, basically turn any Harry Styles song into like an inspiration for All the Right Places.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anca Cruceru.
Hi. I'm very glad that I can meet you, even though virtually. You are an incredible author, and I'm very thankful that I could read your books, which were based on these profound and significant subjects, and I learned lots of things from them. I have two questions. The first one is, how long had been taking you to think and to develop the characters?
That's great. And thank you so much for your lovely words. It's interesting because Finch really came out just like right away. I sat down to write a chapter just to see what would happen. Didn't really have the book planned. And I just wanted to see if I could write in his voice, and I didn't know his name or anything, but he came just barreling out like he was waiting there, and his name came out, and like, I don't even know where he came from exactly. And then Violet, who was more autobiographical because she was more based on me, she was more of a struggle, because Violet, I don't know, when you're writing a character who's similar to you, you need to almost, you know, think of someone else. You need to infuse them with your feelings and thoughts, but you need to think of someone else in order to have that distance, if that makes sense. So she was a little harder. And usually I do a lot of preparation on character before I start writing. in All the Right Places, I kind of wrote Finch quickly, his first chapter, and then I stopped and I did more preparation on both of them, especially Violet. With Holding Up the Universe, before I ever wrote a word, I really thought about both characters, got to know both characters. I created a playlist for Libby, a playlist for Jack, so that I could really know them as well as possible before I started writing. I write fast, but I do a lot of preparation especially with characters beforehand.
I understand. And thank you for answering. And my second question is, in general, do you build the whole story in your head and then you write it down?
In general, I do. I think I, in general, have an idea of what the story is, the overall story, and the ending. I always think it's kind of like a road trip that you take where generally you know where you want to end up, you know the general route you're going to travel, but there are all these detours that you can't anticipate until you really get into the trip itself. And I try to, in YA, in any writing, they ask if you're a pantser, if you just do it by the seat of your pants, or if you're a plotter and write everything down. And I'm a bit in between. I will write certain things down, kind of keep track of the overall arc of the story, certainly do all the prep work with the characters, but then I leave myself open to all the detours that are going to happen along the way.
Nice. Thank you for answering. You're incredible.
You. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. You are too, and I really appreciate it.
Sara Maria. Sara Maria.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
I'm very happy to meet you.
I'm happy to meet you too.
I want to ask you something. Who is your favorite character from your book, All the Bright Place, and why?
Oh my gosh. I loved, I think I have to say Finch, because he was so interesting to write. And I just, he was inspired by a boy I once loved, but he really became his own character. So now if I think of Finch, I just think of Finch. To me, he's a real person.
Me too.
All on his own. Good. And I just fell in love with him. And I think that, and writing him was just such a challenge, but it was so intriguing and exciting. And so I would say Finch. I also have a soft spot for his little sister, Decca. She was fun to write. She's not in it a lot, but she was just really fun to write. And I love the interaction between them.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Claudio.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, how are you?
So my question is about All the Bright Places. I really loved how you referenced Virginia Woolf, because I was also studying Virginia Woolf at university. And I also read an interview about how you integrated Virginia Woolf. Can you tell me if now, can you see Virginia Woolf in a different way? Can you see some additional inspiration in the future for your future novels?
Interesting. I know, it's so interesting because before All the Right Places, I really had not read much Virginia Woolf. I had been an English major in college, and I had tried to read Virginia Woolf, but I just, for whatever reason, I couldn't really get into Virginia Woolf. And then I discovered, I think I was looking at I have a book of suicide letters that I thought Finch would quote from here and there throughout the book. And the section on Virginia Woolf really intrigued me, and I started reading more about her. And then I stumbled across The Waves, and the quotes from The Waves were just so amazing. So it really opened this whole door for me with Virginia Woolf, and suddenly I was rediscovering her in a way that I hadn't before. So it definitely has given me a new appreciation. And certainly when I'm working on other books, I feel like Virginia Woolf kind of belongs to Finch and Violet, because it was, in a way, she's like their love song. She's the quotes that she wrote that they write back and forth to each other really brought them together in a way at the beginning. So I feel like she kind of belongs to them. But that said, she has so many great quotes that I have this kind of like standing document that has like so many of her quotes in it for, future books when I feel like enough time has passed that I can use her again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will take the last 4 questions. 2 of them were sent by chat. Just now is Mara.
Oh yeah, hi again.
Hi.
So first of all, I want to say I'm so excited about hearing about all your future projects that we're going to see.
Thank you. Yes.
And so I wanted to ask you regarding the movie, the All the Bright Places movie, how was it, and now the Holding Up the Universe movie, how did you choose the scenes that you were going to cut out and kind of the new scenes, like for instance, all the dancing scenes in the All the Bright Places movie to add in? Was that difficult, or was it just, natural?
I think it was difficult, especially at first. It was difficult to let go of some of the scenes that I truly loved. I think the hardest one for me was when he runs to get her flowers and at the nursery and then brings her spring. I think that's the hardest for me. We had the flowers in there, but we actually, because of budget and timing, had to cut that scene. It was in the shooting script, but we weren't able to shoot it because of budgetary reasons and timing reasons. And that just broke my heart. But that's so much of the reality of filming, is that, there's just not room for everything. And sometimes it comes down to budget, or it comes down to schedule, or it comes down to what's visual and what's not. I mean, for instance, the bell tower scene, we were fully intent. We were there shooting in Ohio, fully intent on shooting a bell tower, but we happened across this bridge that we were going to use as the bridge where Violet's sister died. And it was so photogenic, the director said, what do you think if we use the bridge instead as a place they meet? And it makes sense thematically because Violet would go back to the bridge to visit her sister. And so that, that's how that came to be. And I think the thing that I realized the most with this whole process of adapting is that it is a collaboration, and people will bring new ideas that you hadn't considered. And, you fight for the things that you truly, truly feel have to be in there, but you also need to be open to the fact that you're not making the final decision. The directors, the producers, all these, sometimes the actors come up with things that you didn't anticipate. And then, so it's just kind of a beautiful collaboration. And I think once I kind of wrapped my mind around that, I was like, okay, this is awesome.
Okay, thank you. And since this is probably my last question, I just want to say I love you and I admire you so much, and you're just amazing.
Thank you so much. I love you too. Thank you for all your questions.
Ionela Pleșan asked the following thing. In All the Bright Places, Finch tried to make Violet feel better, and in the final, he lost himself. If he wasn't focused so much on Violet, but on himself, would it be better for both of them?
I think so. I think it would. I love that Finch was so protective of her. I love that he put himself aside, because I feel like so much of the time, because of his struggles, Finch had to live so deep in his own mind and was so alone in there. So I feel like Violet really gave him something else to focus on other than himself. But the flip side of that is that not Violet's fault, but Finch also needed to focus more on himself in the way that he needed to be able to ask for help. He needed to be able to speak up, and he had every right to say, I'm not okay, and I need help with this. And we all have that right. We all deserve that. None of us deserve to struggle alone. And so I think that, I think Finch, unfortunately, it was, on his parents to notice more and be more present, but it was also on Finch to speak up for the things he needed.
Daria, have you ever considered the sequel for All the Bright Places?
Definitely. It's funny because when I was writing Holding Up the Universe, I actually originally wanted to write Decca's story, his younger sister. I wanted to write a story about this younger sister who 10 years later is the same age as her brother who died. And, you know, the way that his death has shaded her life and the effect that it had had on her. And then I've also thought about writing Violet in college, you know, Violet after Finch. And it'd be interesting to write a prequel to All the Bright Places, you know, where you focus on Finch and his life before he met Violet. So I've thought of all of those things. I don't know if anyone would be interested, but it's definitely something I've thought about.
Katinka?
Hi, it's a privilege to be able to speak to you. I was curious, you mentioned that you would write playlists for your characters, which I found really inspiring. Is there anywhere we can access these playlists? Have you ever published them?
Absolutely, and I have, and I'm trying to think, because I recently updated my website. I have to look on there to see if they're on there. If they're not, I will add them on there and I will do it in the next couple of days just for you, because they're, I love having them, and I love it when authors do that. And I love being able to listen to playlists that authors create for this kind of thing, because it's exciting to me, especially when I really love a book. I love to like know, okay, what did the author think? Like, what were they listening to? Like, what did they think this character listened to? So I'll double check that and see. And if not, then I'll put it up there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I told you that this is the end, but we still have questions. This is the the thing. I don't know. One question: what did you edit of the All the Bright Places, and did you wish and you wished you didn't? What did you edit out of the All the Bright Places and you wished you didn't? And what is the first book that made you cry? This is, for example, question.
So edit out of the book, I'm assuming, versus the movie. I'm trying to think what I edited out. You know what? I edited out, I had a scene, like one last scene where you find out what Finch is thinking right before the end. And it's and it was very like personal, and it was obviously, and it was very raw, and just his last moments basically. Ultimately I decided not to put that in, because I just felt that I don't know, I felt like it was almost, that was his private, those were his private thoughts. That belonged to him. And the focus then needed to just be on Violet. And as I said, it's more Violet's story. So I felt like that, you know, I need to focus on her and the impact of discovering Finch and losing him, as opposed to almost exploiting what his thoughts were at the very, very, very end. And I don't regret not having that in there. There are moments when I think, oh, that would have been really interesting, but I think I'm glad I didn't put it in. And in terms of a book that made me cry, I just read The Brave by James Bird, which is a middle grade book. And it made me cry like the best way. And I read East Coast Girls by Carrie Kletter. And that made me cry. And I'm not a big crier at books, but both of those gave me, like, I cried, but in a really good, satisfying way.
Okay, so because we are talking about book, the last question: if it were to read a book again for the first time, which one would be that and why? This is
Which one would be?
If it were to read a book for the first time, which one would it be for you?
my goodness, of All the Bright Places and Holding the Universe, or just any book in the world?
Any book on the world.
Oh my gosh, I think I would read.
It's a recommendation, in fact.
I love this question. I feel like I would read, you know, I love Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. And I love Alice. She's probably my favorite literary character. And I think I would read that because I first read it when I was a child. And I think about all the wonder and the excitement and the magic that that book held for me as a young reader. And I think I would read it again for the first time and see if I felt those same things now.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. We all love you very much. My group chat here is full of, we love you so much, Jennifer. Thank you. I love you so much, Jennifer. So I have a lot of messages. This was an incredible meeting. I can't wait to have you with us on, I don't know, on Zoom.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, it would be perfect that you can come to Bucharest and be with us and launch together Breathless and talk about books. You are wonderful. You are an amazing author, and it was such a joy for us to have you with us.
Thank you so much. And thank you. This has just been absolutely wonderful. And thank you for all the questions and the love and the support and for reading. And it is my dream to come there. So I hope I get to come and thank all of you in person. And I just would love that so much.
This was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. These questions were phenomenal.
Yeah, it's true. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Sending everyone love. Please stay safe.